Happy Friday, fam. Who's ready to fit? It is Friday, June 26th, day number 103, and we are going unilateral today for our work. We are going to bench press first. 4 rounds, 30 seconds of reps, right arm only bench press, 1 minute rest, 30 seconds of reps, left arm bench press, 1 minute of rest. All right, 4 times through, like I said, on each one of them. The important thing to remember here, and we're going to go through the modifications obviously later, but if you're going to end up modifying this to a 2-arm movement, like a push-up or something along those lines, 2-minute rest in between the rounds is what I'm looking at, right? So we have 2 1-minute rests after each piece. So technically before that side goes again, it has had 2 full pieces of rest. Make sure when you guys see the video on the strength part, you pay attention to how to stabilize that movement, how to balance it out, where to have the arm position as opposed to just kind of laying down on a bench or even on the floor for a floor press and trying to crank away and balance yourself with the lifting arm, so to speak. All right. And then for the workout, again, we're sticking with that single side concept. We're going to go with the 16 minutes alternating EMOM, full minute, unless you want to scale. Okay. So one of the ways you guys can scale things back today is by simply creating a time that you're going to stop from the time that you're going to work. All right. So it's going to be a full minute of kettlebell push press, right side, then a full minute of single arm swings, right side. Keep in mind, whenever we do single arm kettlebell swings, they're always going to be at the Russian height, not overhead. That's technically a snatch if we're taking it up overhead. And then the third movement is going to be kettlebell front squats before a fourth piece, which is going to be a full minute rest. Okay. And then the next round, we're going to go left, 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 rest, right, 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 rest, left, 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 rest. Okay. So again, if you're looking to scale the reps or the intensity, then maybe just go for 40 seconds, rest for 20, go for 30, rest for 30, whatever you want to do as you're going through that, with a goal of moving as well and as best you can, collecting as many reps as you can as you go through whatever time period you're working from. Stick around. I'll go over the strength piece, I'll go over the workout, and we'll talk about some modifications based on the equipment that you guys have. Demonstration time. So let's talk about this bench press first. First, you're going to notice that kettlebell is resting at its crease from the handle to the bell on my wrist. All right. Essentially, what I'm trying to do here is create as much surface area contact as possible, so it's not smashing into my forearm in one specific spot, like if I were to put the bell directly onto my forearm. Okay. From there, I'm going to lay myself back into position, just like I normally would if I was doing a 2-arm bench press. I'm going to set my shoulders, backing down a little bit, and go through my press. I want you guys focusing on maintaining the same pressing arm position that you would have if you were using both, which is going to be somewhere between that 45 and 30 degrees from the torso, from the hip. And if we need to, in order to create stabilization right off the bat, one, we should be using our core and our glutes a little bit more to stabilize, pushing the feet into the floor to create some stability. But I'd rather see that opposite arm out to the side to provide a little bit of balance, or even honestly holding on to the bench, rather than you guys rolling in and out of that press. Okay? So the idea here is whenever we're doing stuff unilateral, we're making sure that we're not able to compensate from one side to the next and adapt to weaknesses by using the stronger side, which thus creates bigger weaknesses. We're also forcing, in most cases, the core and the hips, the midline, whatever you want to call it, everything that's involved in that, to get a little bit more stability work in. Right? So a bunch of different ways to do it. If we have a dumbbell, obviously this is going to be the same thing. If all we have is a barbell, then we're probably going to go with a regular bench press. In which case, remember I said we're looking for a 2-minute rest afterwards, not a 2.5-minute rest, but the 30 seconds is going to be the same. The weight is up to pretty much whatever you have. If you have a bunch of options, let's pick something we can continually work and work well for the entirety of the 30 seconds.
All right, and that way we'll at least spend some time under tension. So even if our left and right side are off by a rep, it's not going to be as big of a deal between me spending 15 seconds to do 5 reps on the right and 9 seconds to do 3 or 4 reps on the left. All right, stick around. I will go over a way of modifying this with. All right, so let's get into our 3 single-side movements for the workout. First one, again, set in the same kind of contact position. One of the cues I like to use here for the correct front rack position is that my thumb is touching the collarbone on the same side. So I'm really resting that weight on the shoulder, on the bicep, on the forearm, and setting all of those on my pec. Okay. So from there, I'm push pressing for essentially as much of that minute as I can on one side. Second minute, it's going to be the single arm swings, which if you notice, there's a little bit of shoulder turn, a little bit of torso turn, but the big thing here is that I'm trying to keep the wrist in contact with the hip and engage with the hip as long as possible so that the hips are doing as much work as they can as opposed to the lower back doing a decent amount of that work if I'm not maintaining contact. And then after that, that third final movement is going to be the front rack squat. That front rack position is going to be the same as the starting position for the push press. Fourth minute's going to be the rest. Then we switch sides, go to the left, or vice versa, switch from the left to the right. Stick around and I'll give you guys some modifications for the workout as well.
Stay tuned for movement modifications.
Equipment modifications, like we said earlier, for the bench press. If we have a bar, let's do a regular bench press. Another modification option is a push-up. I'm going to talk about how to still try and get some unilateral work on the push-ups in a second. Dumbbells, kettlebells, pretty much all the same thing in terms of the bench press. But what happens if all we have is a band? Well, we can either do that push-up I'm going to go through in a second, or if we have a bench or something we can utilize as a bench, there is still a way of creating that same type of scenario. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the offside, grab my band, and I'm going to anchor it to my abdomen or my chest, whatever feels like it's in the best position to get the right angle on the pressing side. From there, I lay back and I go through my press just like I would if I had a dumbbell or a kettlebell. If it's too light, I pull that band through a little bit more and makes it heavier. If it's too heavy, I let the slack out and I make the press a little bit lighter. Okay? There's different ways to modify that. All of them are pretty much going to be right as long as the core mechanics of the movement is right. All right. So if you guys want to play with it, send me some ideas. If you have any questions on if you're going to hurt yourself or if you're going to help yourself, more than happy to look. Now, let's talk about if we want to try and get some unilateral work out of a push-up position. Essentially, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, in this case, a plate. Really, it can just be any kind of elevation, if you will. And I'm going to put one of my hands elevated on that plate. Now, when I do that, the point is the floor hand is the one that's going to work a little bit harder. All right, so in this scenario, right hand's on the plate, left hand is on the ground. What I'm doing with the right hand is kind of creating a little kickstand. I'm almost leaning against that arm. I'm allowing the left arm to come all the way down, full range of motion into that push-up, aka bench press. And then I'm pressing predominantly from that position, just kind of holding myself in place against the plate with the right arm. All right, it's tricky, not necessarily because it's hard to do, because it's hard to do well. So definitely get some practice in on this. If you still want to get some of the other movements in, maybe a bilateral push-up, probably not a bad idea. Now, let's talk about how we can modify the workout. Dumbbell, it's pretty much going to be the same thing as the kettlebell, okay? With the one caveat of, well, what do I do with a dumbbell on the swing round? Well, there's a couple different things we can do. We can do single leg RDLs, or we can do a dumbbell swing, okay? It's not going to be a perfect translation of a single arm kettlebell swing, but it's going to get the same dynamic hip and knee action and extension. The trick here is that it's going to take a lot of core strength and stability to be able to keep ourselves here and not here, okay? So there's probably gonna be some weight requirements that it has to be light enough for you to control it, but also heavy enough for you to actually feel like that dumbbell is swinging through the range of motion, okay? Push press, front squat's pretty much the same thing. If we are going with a barbell, we only have a barbell. There's a couple different things you guys can do here. You can change the movements up. It can be a barbell push press. It can be a barbell hang power clean. It can be a barbell hang extension. It can be a barbell snatch. It can be into a barbell front squat, a back squat, what have you. You can do deadlifts on the second minute, however you guys want to go about that. Just keep in mind you're going to do 4 rounds, and you're not going to be resting a side or a hip every other round. So you might want to give yourself like a 40-second work, 20-second rest requirement within those rounds, okay? Weight, again, set it to something we can do well and continuously for whatever the time is that you're going to be working, just like we talked about on the bench press. Same thing with the kettlebell, same thing with dumbbells. Now, what happens if we only have a plate or a band? Well, with the plate, obviously we can goblet squat it for the third one. If we have the right size plate, we can work on the grip and do swings from there. We can work on the grip here, do RDLs. We can toss the plate over our back and do good mornings. Can we press the plate? Well, that's up to you. Yes, you technically can press the plate, all right? Chances are the plate's gonna be so light that you're not really gonna need to do a push press, so I would probably just do a strict press in that scenario. Now, when it comes to the band is actually gonna be easier than you guys think, especially if you have 2 different bands. With one band, we can still do the dip and drive push press. We can still do a squat. We can still loop it from the opposite foot under the shoulder into a rack position and squat with it from there. The opposite hip and opposite heel on that is basically just to try and get some extra stretch on the band and make it a little bit heavier. For the swing, this is still doable. The trick here is that I'm gonna have to spend some time anchoring it to something, so that's gonna take up a little bit of time in that minute. But basically, I'm gonna anchor it behind me, I'm gonna hold it off the inside of that hip, I'm gonna let the band stretch back, and then I'm gonna create the extension with the legs and hips coming through. One of the things you guys could always do to modify that, if you're only looking at bodyweight stuff, is maybe a single arm push press with something relatively light but also stable enough and enough weight that you can move through for the push press. We can do a single leg glute bridge for the extension on the kettlebell swing, and then we can do our air squats for that third movement. All right, if you guys have any questions, not sure on